Hello and welcome to Wednesday in Westeros. I'm Todd A.
I'm Taylor Trask.
And with us is no one, just me and Taylor.
We say that because we've had Emily Kelly on a few times recently, and
yes, never mind. I can't even say it now. She called herself the poor woman's Joanna Robinson last week, and I corrected her on Twitter and said I like to think Joe is the rich man's Emily Kelly. So
and Joe chimed in on that too, which was really funny.
She did. So which we appreciate because Joe is definitely the queen of the North or South. She's North to me, so that's
North.
What we call her.
Yeah, the South doesn't have much left going for it, so we got to get put credit where it's due.
Yeah, I was thinking I think she's north of me, literally, physically.
Oh, you're talking in the real world. I was talking
San Francisco,
in Westerosi parlance.
I think she's in Northern California.
Okay.
Yeah. So, how you been doing? We shouldn't even do that. We should just jump.
We should, but we should make people wait for it just a little bit longer because
that's kind of what I was thinking. I wanted to do was like, we've been waiting for this season
for so damn long. And I mean, because even if you listen back to our preview from a couple weeks ago, and I was even like, so it's next week, it's coming up, right? You're like, no, it's actually 2 weeks from now. And I thought, oh Christ, gotta wait even longer. But you know what? It's back, and we're here. I'm doing great, by the way. I know Comic-Con is coming up for you this week.
Yeah. So I'm out of my mind with preparation and all that kind of crap. I don't actually prepare too much. I'll share my tips right here to delay the discussion of the episode even more, which is sunscreen, water, and hand sanitizer. Fuckloads of hand sanitizer. Here's my hidden secret, Taylor. I'm just going to share this with you because no one else is listening. Cucumber face wipes, so refreshing in the middle of the day.
Oh, there's a good thought. How much time? Here's a good question. I know we've talked about Comic-Con and other episodes, but how much time do you actually spend outside in the course of the week?
I mean, a lot because there's a lot of food outside and you got to walk to it. So it's not so much that you're standing in a line outside. What I'm trying to think of is whatever. I'm sorry that the name is not on the tip of my tongue, but there's basically like 3 huge rooms. There's actually probably more than that. There's Ballroom 20 and there's Hall H, and there's this other one that's in one of the hotels next door. And the line for that one, which I've stood in many times, snakes out along the harbor. And so for that one in Hall H, you are outside all the time. Ballroom 20, you're outside like if things are really terrible.
I just like the name Ballroom 20. That sounds like a cool, like almost like a speakeasy, right? It's like we're Ballroom 20.
I wish. And it's so strange that it's like the largest one,
It's bigger than Hall H?
No. It's slightly smaller, but it's huge. So, yeah. Ballroom 20 is where I saw Zack Snyder present The Watchmen, and I saw the Mythbusters a couple of years there. Yeah, so it's like the big thing that's like a standalone, but not the like all day Marvel DC fests and stuff like that.
Got it. Well, enough of that. Let's jump in. Dragonstone. I'm sure those people out there who are like just hitting that fast forward 30-second button, just like, okay, are they talking about? Oh, there it is. Dragonstone. I'll say it one more time so that you can, if you're fast forwarding, you can hear us. We're starting, and it happened last night. So
so we're recording this, which is kind of why we're chilled out right now, because we're gonna like end the episode and immediately record, and probably wisely we decided not to do that. So we've had a day to digest. What were your quick impression of it?
I'm gonna go out. I would rather start on a contrarian note and say, for what I wanted it to be, it kind of fell short. It felt like a great first episode for season 3 or 4, a weak episode for what is season 7, the penultimate season. I really thought they should be clipping along a little faster, and it just kind of felt like, hey, remember these guys? Let's check in on everybody and see what they're up to. And I'm like, man, we don't have the time for this. So I was a little sort of frustrated by that, let's just say.
Yeah, I'm not going to dispute that or impression at all. I definitely, there's a style that Game of Thrones has created over the years, and this is totally fits in that style. And it is like just a complete expository episode. And the problem to me is those drove me crazy in episodes like 2 and 3. Like I just remember blogging because I had this ritual of like I would watch Game of Thrones and then I would watch Mad Men. And there were episodes, there were weeks where Mad Men was so much more dramatic and tense, not because of the action, but just because of the way it would sort of linger on one story for the whole thing. And those Game of Thrones episodes where it went like, now let's catch up with this person. Now let's catch up with this person. Now let's catch up. That drove me crazy back in the day. And now it's kind of like, it's stylistic and I excuse it and I forgive it. I'm not like, I wasn't upset watching the episode last night. I just kind of settled in like, we're getting one of those, like nobody's going to die. No, there's no battle, nothing like, we're not going to get any answers tonight. We're just going to get a lot like, it's just pushing the, the chess pieces, the risk pieces a little farther on the board.
Well, it's twofold, right? So like on one hand, you have, this is the first episode after a stunning 2-parter last season directed by Miguel Sapochnik of Battle of the Bastards. And then that last episode, I always forget the name, but like 2 episodes that were
Winds of Winter.
The Winds of Winter. 2 episodes that were incredibly self-contained and focused on just one part of Westeros / story.
Right.
So when, my brain is still kind of stuck in that mode. So to have that broken is one thing. The other hand, you've got a lot of characters whose narrative urgency or agency is now kicked into high gear. So you can't just show us Bran and go, well, we'll get back to him. It's like, no. We need to know what's happening with him now, like all the way through. Like, give us more than just that. We need to know what's happening with Daenerys more than just, hey, she shows up at Dragonstone. Like, we're past that now. We're to the point now where we need to really know what's going on with these characters in a deeper way than just some cursory glances. And I just feel like it's going to have a really uneven tone if we jump into that, in episode 4 or 5 and 6, and then it's like this part of the season is going to feel a little, off.
I just don't want an expository season and then season 8 like action every week. Like, they got to start closing the stories off, man.
They've assured us though in promo stuff. They're like, oh no, this season's going to move along. We're leaving behind the Crufts. I'm like, okay.
Right. So I will totally forgive this if every, next episode, if this is sort of, let's have the last of that exposition and let's just keep it moving.
Yeah, I will say one of my friends, my business partner Severin, mentioned that the costumes this episode were unbelievably gorgeous, and I happen to agree. Of all the things that I noticed last night, I was just like, God damn it, the costumes look, and maybe it was the design, but maybe it was the lighting and the color correction, but like they just looked so good compared to seasons past. And I don't know if that was intentional, if the team has just gotten that good over time. But my God, it's worth another look just for that.
I think it's just black is the new Lannister red. So,
but even like, just like the way, I mean, little things like the way Peter Baelish's like robe kind of flowed with him, like the material was more like fluid. Like there was something about all the costumes that just had a higher level. But you're right, a lot of them were dark. Like Sansa's was dark. Like everybody's, I think, in the
Cersei, Jaime, there and Euron, and well, let's not waste any time. Let's like kind of hit the scenes that, I mean, I think we've literally listed every scene here.
Let's just go in order too, so that if you're watching the episode and you can almost treat this as like a little commentary track, to some extent.
Yeah. We had a cold opening, which we've only had 2 or 3 times before. I was really trying to think of what we've seen before. There's the Maggie the Frog prophecy was a cold opening, I believe. The Hound was a cold opening last year when he meets the Septon or whatever that was. And I think there was one more and I can't remember it. But anyway, that was, to me, it was, I don't know. It was a heck of a way to start the season because not only was it cold opening, but it's Arya in the guise of Walder Frey murdering a whole bunch of people. And when that, I mean, tell me what your impression was when you saw that.
Well, I'm gonna kind of. I'm trying not to jump ahead too far, but as soon as I saw Walder Frey, I'm like, "There's no way this is a flashback. Clearly, it's Arya." Even the way she was talking, she's like, "You might wonder why I've gathered you all here, and the winter has come, and it's time I tell you my plan." I'm like, "Oh, it's all veiled dialogue," which I thought was hilarious. Like, even though she was in disguise, she was basically still she was basically telling them what was about to go down through her Walder sort of veiled stuff. So I would assume that there wasn't any intention on the writer's part to trick us into thinking that this was some other thing. I mean, clearly it was Arya. I just thought it was immensely satisfying when she killed all of them and just sort of walked out of there like a gangster, like, "Yep, tell them who came. It was me. Moving on."
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was nice to just see she's
the
jumping.
cold opening part of it was what threw me off, because if they had shown the title sequence and then the scene, I might have kind of known, like, oh yeah, of course this is like happening again, like, because she says like second time in 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was a cold open, and I just watched the last time on Game of Thrones montage where they had the Walder Frey stuff, I was like, wait, is this a flashback to the feast where she actually kills him? That was the only, all I'm saying is, if it hadn't been a cold opening, I mean, I guess that was why they did it that way, was to make you question, like, wait, what what is this? Yeah. There's actually something at the end of the episode. I watched it last night and I totally forgot what it is. I think Benioff says after they watched that scene, they decided it really had to stand apart from the rest of the episode. So,
well, here's my problem. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I actually thought the White Walker slow march would that should have been the cold opening, both because of the pun aspect to it, but like also just I feel like
to me it was such a great shot of the mystery of Game of Thrones, because for like 10 seconds I was like, what am I watching approach? Is this going to be I'm sitting there racking my brain going, it's not the Dothraki horde. There's snow, but is that a dust cloud, or is that snow, or is it, is it the walkers, or is this going to be a big march of soldiers? It really did all those things that Game of Thrones is so good at doing. And so I agree with you. You're right. That would have been such crazy cold opener.
But think about this too, right? Like, before I say that, wasn't the very first episode a cold opening of the Night's Watchmen getting attacked by White Walkers way back in the day? I think that was a cold open too. And if that is the case, I feel like we're in the home stretch. Yeah. If you're going to start the penultimate season, you've got to drive home narratively what's important. And what's not important, cool as it is to see, what's not important is Arya killing a bunch of Freys. Like, we could have even been told about that and been like, oh, well done. Like, we don't necessarily need to see it. And if we do, it doesn't have to be the first thing we see, which kind of sends a signal of, we still don't quite know how focused the story needs to be just yet. Right. And
I agree with
almost subconsciously.
But I will take issue with the fact that we didn't need to see that, because, and actually maybe this is another reason for it being a cold opening, is that really is Arya playing the role that Lady Stoneheart plays in the books. And maybe, just maybe, that will shut up anybody who thinks that Lady Stoneheart is still going to appear. Because it's like, look, there's no work for her to do. Arya's just killed all the Freys all at once,
They could have added insult to injury they could have added insult to injury by having her, after that was done, walk up to the grave of her mother and go, "You're still dead, mother, and you're never coming back." And it's just something to drive that home, because I'm sure those guys are tired. Benioff and Weiss are just tired of hearing is Lady Stoneheart coming back from a very vocal minority. But just no, she's not. All right, you know what? You know how most TV writers have a giant bulletin board of index cards that sort of lay out the season and the episode and thing. I have this vision in my mind now of the Arya kills the Freys card further in the episode, and as we've gotten closer and closer to in terms of their editing schedule, they're like, you know what, fuck it, and they just took that card and plopped it right in the beginning. They're like, we're gonna put this right here. We're just gonna get it all the way out of the way, and then we're gonna get into the show. Because that White Walker, we'll get to that in a second.
Get into the show.
I want to throw some attention at the title sequence though. Because we didn't see any shots of Essos for like the first time ever. I think it was all Westeros. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I noted in your notes that I didn't even notice this, which continues my 7-year streak of not paying attention to what happens in the opening credits.
I love the opening credits because it signals what's important. Like, the Stark. That was the other thing about the opening credits. The Stark sigil was back on Winterfell, which kind of just, I remember just feeling like, oh, yay. Like it felt great, but okay.
Sigils?
Yeah. The wolf's head.
I have actually noticed that. Yeah, you're right.
Cause remember like when the flayed man's been out there for 2 years now. So it's all of a sudden now it's not burning anymore. It is, I think actually after the second year after Ramsay took over, it wasn't burning, but it had the flayed man sigil up.
Right.
But the other thing I'm going to point this out now. I'm convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that season 8's opening credits is going to show the wall blown to shit and just like it's going to zoom up there to where the wall should be. And you're just going to see a broken wall because the final Ned's head moment of this season is going to be the wall falling down. I just know like creatively that'll be fun to see.
What if that's how they show the wall crumbling? And like, they don't even have to have like really expensive CGI. They just sort of like make it crumbled in the opening credits. And then it opens on just a crumbled wall and we're done.
I mean,
I feel like sometimes
they could.
I'm just deconstructing what we all want. I would hate for that to happen.
I mean, as much shit as they've been spending money on, I would be shocked. They're like, oh God, these dragons are so expensive. We can't show you the wall, but it's for good reason. The dragons are going to be really cool. We're going to show you Euron's badass ship as a CGI
oh my God.
thing.
Let's cover these next two scenes so we can talk about that badass ship. But so we talked about the White Walker opening, which is cool. And then is it right after that we see Bran and Mira at the wall? I know whenever we see them,
because remember Bran
juxtaposition. Like I was like, were they right in front of them?
No. We were seeing the White Walker slow march through Bran's eyes.
Oh, right.
He was ravening into checking out where they are and everything. So we were seeing his point of view.
This was just another wasted scene they had to show us where Bran and Mira's progress, but I'm with you. Sorry, I stole that right out of your notes. This was definitely like
that's all right.
2 minutes we didn't need.
Well, it's 2 minutes we didn't need, but here's the thing. It's a very loaded scene. Like there's all this speculation that Bran can't cross the wall, that Bran has some kind of connection to the Night King, and like him crossing, and like, once he's at the Night's Watch, like, oh my God, he could be reunited with Sansa and Jon. So there's all this stuff attached with him coming in that we never see again. And it's like, hey, what's up? It was basically him going, hey, what's up? What's up to you? Can we come in? Yeah, sure. And that's
good point.
Like,
I think we should take it as like a portent that the wall is not going to come down because of magic, which was a theory we talked about last year, that many people have talked about, which is mentioned in the books that the magic of the wall is related to that magic of the little dirt house that he lived in with the old man in the tree. And so once Bran was marked by the Night King and that magic spell was gone and the White Walkers could come through that, that spell, that if he crossed the wall, they could break the wall with that spell too, or whatever.
We don't know that's not true though. It doesn't mean
we don't know that it's not true, but I did feel like them showing him like come through without, a weird little blue glow lighting up the wall or something like that. It meant, okay, they're going to have to knock this wall down in the dramatic, Horn of Winter kind of way. Not some magic thing where they just walk up and it all turns to icicles, which would be super boring. I hope they don't do that.
It's like, we got to get Bran across the wall again before they come through. That would just be a waste of time. I love it though, because of all the characters on this show, Bran's aging every year, like really truly illustrates how much time has passed, both in our world, but also in theirs. Like he just gets older and older every time he shows up. It's amazing.
Is he like a heavy smoker now or something?
Yeah, man, his puberty has completed. Apparently, he's just like, I'm Bran. What's up? I'm the 3-Eye Raven now.
Yeah, it's
let me in. Sorry.
So then we jump down to Winterfell, and visit Jon and Sansa.
Which, by the way, I was convinced that somewhere during that sequence, we would see a raven, somebody bringing in a note from the wall going, your brother's here, your brother's come. And it's like, oh, we have to.
Well, they do. There's a totally misleading scene because that guy walks up after the meeting with all the northern people. Jon and Sansa are up on this, walkway, and this guy runs up and hands Jon a note, and you're totally expecting it to be like, your brother's arrived at the wall.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, it's Cersei. And then they have a conversation about Cersei, which is enlightening, where Sansa gets to explain to Jon, like, she knows her better. But it was definitely, I'm with you. Like, it was weird. Like, that seemed like it was going to be the note that said, and, he's going to look up from it all emotional. Bran's alive. He's arrived at the wall.
Yeah.
But no.
Which would have made that initial scene feel more connected. And it would have been a great place to go. We'll see that, we'll catch up with them again next week, where it just feels like, oh, they have learned new information. The thing about that Jon Sansa scene that bugged me is that nothing new was gained, right? Like nothing. All we found out was that, Sansa has her ideas of her own, which we knew from last year. Jon's becoming a good ruler, which we knew from last year. And, oh, by the way, Lady Mormont continues to be a fucking badass and talk down everybody. In fact, did she not dress down that same guy she dressed down last year when he's like, isn't that the same guy who's like, Lady Mormont speaks harshly but truly? Like, isn't that same dude who's just like... I
don't know. I would have to go back and look at that.
I'm just so happy for Lady Mormont continuing to just do her thing. Like, the writers clearly know how popular she is. I put a thing in the show notes though for our listeners. There's an amazing tweet by I can't even pronounce the username. It's like Bwelon7. But I was looking at the tweets last night. BWLEON7 on Twitter. He put up a picture of Lady Mormont with one of her little scowls, and he says, I quote, "Mark my words, this little motherfucker is going to kill one of those White Walker giants." And I just laughed and laughed and laughed because it's like, it's exactly what's going to happen. They showed us those amazing, dead white white WIGHT giants, and it's like, how epic would it be if she just brings the heat to one of those guys in like the final battle or something? Yeah.
I'll take slight issue with your dismissal of the Jon Sansa scene. I agree that like we basically knew that information. There were a couple of like really slight, not necessarily new information, but I liked that she kind of blew off Littlefinger.
That's true. Yeah,
that was great. And there was a really like 2-line exchange with Brienne, which, like, honestly, that's probably all. We probably just needed like I don't know. They had to give us the scene had to have some meat to it. So the Jon and Sansa like conversation had to be the meat of that scene. But the 2 lines to Brienne, and which comes after her blowing off Littlefinger, was like, oh yeah, that's the information we really needed from this scene. The other stuff we knew. And I do appreciate that Sansa has information on Cersei that Jon doesn't know. That's true. It does set up that thing of like, she fucking told Jon last season, like the same exact, she gave him great tactical information about don't go battle this guy. Now she withheld crucial information, which she should have told him, which was Littlefinger as the Knights of the Vale. But she did give him good tactical advice last season, and she's here giving him more great tactical advice about Cersei and also about those houses. I mean, just, I don't know. I just thought that whole, like, we're going to give it back to the family thing was just like patriarchal nonsense. Like, yeah, that was that's more what I'm thinking about when I think about the wasted, just the wasted time. Like, at this point, I'm a lot more sensitive to just wasted time in general. And it's just like, totally. We don't need to see these. I do love, though. I love the, just Brienne's like, why is he still here? Like, because you're like, why is Littlefinger still hanging around? Like, it's so true. As a viewer, you're just like, man, he's not getting anything out of this. Like, why is he just lurking around? And Brienne's just kind of like, yeah, why is he still here? Yeah, I know exactly what he wants. Yeah.
It's just he's like that high school senior who just can't leave his hometown after he graduates, just hanging around the school like, hey, you kids want a beer? Want to hang out? Like, that is Peter Baelish.
That is Littlefinger exactly. I keep getting older, they stay the same age.
I mean, right, which is interesting because he was, in the first 2-3 seasons, one of the most interesting dynamic characters, and he's really hit he doesn't have anywhere to go story-wise. So he either has to go back to the Vale and just hang out there until he's called upon again, or try to get with Sansa, and she's too smart for him now, which is interesting because you compare that to Varys, who was sort of Littlefinger's rival at King's Landing for better or worse. Varys, very strategically made some choices that could have backfired, and now he's on the winning side currently. He's got shit coming down the pike that he's going to be engaged in. He might be a merman, who knows? But Baelish is just kind of there, just kind of hanging. Do you know what I want? I want to see next week or the week after where Lady Mormont has a confrontation with Peter Baelish, where she basically just says something so demeaning that he just leaves with his head, hung in shame.
We can't jump too far, but in that real quick promo, it looks like somebody's choking him.
Or really?
Throwing him against the wall or something.
I didn't even catch that. Interesting. Wouldn't it be awesome if it was the Bear Island people? No.
This is little tiny Lyanna Mormont.
I love it, but no, I love it when she's like, wait. I love it when she's like dressing down that dude again. He's like, I'm not asking my granddaughter to fight. And she's like, excuse me. I'm little and I'm a girl, but God damn it, I'm going to fight. And my favorite part was when she's like, and I will say here now that every man, woman, and child of Bear Island shall be ready. And I was really hoping that someone would have leaned in and said, and as you know, the men of everybody from Bear Island is worth 10 men. So that's going to be 1,000 people. We're ready to go. I can't wait because she's been talking at Bear Island pretty heavily the last 2-3 years. I can't wait for the inevitable scene where it's the final confrontation with the White Walkers, and the Bear Island contingency is there, and they're just mowing everybody down. It's just we can finally see if the hype is worth it. That would be amazing.
Again, I know I keep deconstructing the things we actually like about this, but man, wouldn't it have been great in the Battle of the Bastards if, as Rickon's running across the field and the arrows start to fall and they just cut to Lyanna Mormont and she's like, zigzag, you motherfucker.
You're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong.
You fucking idiot.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Is your whole family like this? She looks over to John. I'm going back to Bear Island. As much as I dismiss the Game of Thrones spinoffs, I would love a Bear Island spinoff. Or it's her great grandmother, or the person she replaced. Wasn't that her grandmother that she replaced, or her mother? Somebody was there was an older woman who was the queen of Bear Island. I would love it if they were all as just sort of cantankerous as she is. Anyway, moving on.
I was trying to move us south, but there was one more thing. There was a shot of Winterfell, just the grounds and the castle, that was amazing. I just wanted to note that.
Where it showed the kind of camped outside.
Yeah, I loved that. Yeah. That was so great. So anyway, then we catch up with Jaime and Cersei, both in their new Lannister black. Originally she's standing on that map, and they have another expository discussion, and then I was listening to Father those 40 years, blah blah blah. She is right on the precipice of madness. If she was, which is kind of hard to say because you would think that when she blew up the Sept last year, that was clearly her just madness, fully. Yeah. But yeah.
I feel here's my problem with that scene though. She's on the precipice of madness, but Tywin made a comment a couple of seasons ago that still rings true. And I'd like to think that Jaime is sensing that. Remember when Tywin told her, he's like, you're not, the problem with you is that you're not as clever as you think you are. Because Cersei's constantly, trying to be like, I'm my father's daughter. And Tywin's like, no, you're not. And she had this moment when remember when Jaime is like, yeah, we need food and rest for our men and winter's here and we need to take care of that. And she's like, no, I don't think so. And he's just constantly giving her good advice. And then there's this moment where he's like, we need allies, and it cuts to the shoreline. She's like, see, I brought allies. And she felt so, there's just this self-satisfied smugness with that, where Jaime's just kind of like, I almost wanted him to repeat Tywin's line to her right there. It's like, you're not as good as you. This is not going to go well. Like, I feel like Jaime. Hopefully this season we get to see the break where Jaime finally goes, man, I need to look out for me here, because this is just not right. This is a lost cause.
You went right where I was going, which is I think the purpose of this scene was mostly to show like Jaime in the same room with her, so that he's going, okay. Like, I can't hang with this nonsense anymore. So yeah, then you're right. There's this weird, like, kind of like, we need to form new alliances, and then cut to like almost smash cut, like Euron Greyjoy's amazing fucking ship,
the flagship,
which I assume is Silence, but I don't know. I waited for somebody to mention that, but I think that's the name of his ship, is Silence, because he's cut out the tongues of his whole crew. But that was a badass battleship. However, I don't understand the strength of the Greyjoys. You know, like I get that he's been at sea for a long time, but it really looked like when Yara and Theon ran, it looked like they took all the ships. I mean, there was a thing where it was like, they took your best ships, you know, but as I recall, it didn't look like there was much left. And I know he said, we're going to build all these ships and stuff. And we don't know how much time has passed or whatever, but that was like, not just ships, but that was a lot of like person power, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm going to guess there's basically nobody left on the Iron Islands. It's just like, there's like one dude cleaning out the chamber pots, and like, that's it. Because they used everything else to build those ships. There was a lot of ships in that harbor. Like when they panned back, there was a ton of them. It wasn't like there's 20. There was like hundreds at least, it looked like.
Oh, yeah, you know? It's insane.
Now, granted, not all of them were as badass as that flagship, but still, like that was an impressive little fleet. I just, you know, that whole Euron as a character at this juncture really bothers me, because he shows up late in the series. He had no prior character arc that we loved or hated. It wasn't like Joffrey where we you know, over time learned to really hate him, or Ramsay, where like, you know, Ramsay had an introduction period, and like, then we're like, oh, we hate that guy. He earned the hate, right? And it's like, it's almost like they're putting Euron up to be the new, like, he's the badass everybody's gonna hate. But I'm like, yeah, it's kind of too late for him. Like, I don't care either way, right? So it's just like, why is he here? He's not even eloquent. It's not like he's gonna give a Tyrion style rant that's like, ooh, well, that sounded good. He's bumbling. He's an idiot. Man, you know,
you bring up a great dramatic question there, which is like, we see so many characters like Oberyn, who comes in and is super enjoyable to watch, and he's this flawed character, and he's got so much personality, and then they, you know, kill him off 8 episodes later or whatever. But then Euron, it's like, God, this guy's going to stick around. And it's not that you know, it's like the Eagles, man. I'm just indifferent to the guy. I'm like, you have nothing appealing to me, Euron.
Well, the other thing, it's how he was introduced still bugs me. He just shows up on a bridge during a stormy night and goes, "I'm your brother." And it's like, how do we know that? Like, it's Balon barely even got to see him before he, like, you know, let Balon drop. So it's like, if I was Balon, I'd be like, "What? Who are you? Like, what?" And then, like, you know, he just strolls into the Kingsmoot. You know, after Yara gives her like badass speech, he's like, "Yeah, I'm here. I'm Euron," and everybody just goes, "Yeah, I guess you are." Okay, like, there's not even he's been in exile. Does anybody still recognize him? Like, why does he hold so much goddamn weight as a character? I don't understand.
Exactly. Which like feeds into all that. Like, I think the thing is that so much stuff is so intricately stacked up and built up over 7 seasons. I mean, even the preceding scene with Jaime and Cersei, like, that is loaded with their whole backstory as lovers and parents, and every conflict they've had before. And even if we think like, oh, you're wasting time, get to the dragons, like, it's still dramatically interesting. And then Euron shows up, and you're right. Like, we have no connection to him as a Greyjoy at all. And then he's just not, he doesn't really have a personality, you know?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Would it have been more interesting if Euron was never part of the story?
I love where you're going here.
And instead, Yara and Theon, Yara had to betray her father, took the ships, and Balon basically did everything that we see Euron doing. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that just seems like, because right away you have, from the beginning, you built Yara up to be like her father's heir apparent, like her father's favorite, blah, blah, blah. All my sons are dead and you're a pussy, Theon. Like, she's the one who's here. And it's like to create a moment dramatically where she has to break from her father and, take the ships. And, and maybe it's because Balon went crazy, or he just became, just not demonstrated he's not a good leader. Almost in the same vein as Walder Frey, just a different taste of Walder Frey. And then Balon has to basically go to King's Landing, and he's a prideful man. To see him basically try to beg Cersei for an alliance because he's so pissed at that betrayal, like that just immediately becomes more interesting than, oh, here's this random dude who you've never met before, who we may not even know if he's really him showing up is just as legitimate as Gendry, like rowing into some country in Essos going, yeah, I'm a king that once was here and I deserve to be followed. Like, dude, you just showed up. We don't know who you are.
Right. Anyway, and that goes along with, what I was saying about like just all that like stacked history. Why is anybody following him? We don't have any history of like, we don't need to beat that into the ground. I mean, we know he's just a deus ex machina basically, so that Cersei can have some alliance and have some huge armada.
Can I ask you one more question about Euron, though? Because I was reading in the comments section that, and I don't know if it was mentioned last season, and I'm not as familiar with the book, obviously. Does he possess the dragon horn that can control dragons?
Yes.
Has the show established that yet?
No. The show's never mentioned that as far as I remember.
Okay, so hopefully that won't be I'm like, if that's a thing,
oh my God, if that comes in, that'll really, confirm it.
And he really is a deus ex machina, because it's like, what's the point? He should have mentioned that at the goddamn King's Moot, like, I've got the horn, or whatever, whatever it is. Somebody mentioned that it had happened in the show. I'm like, I don't recall that ever being a thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I don't think so. But I didn't even notice Essos missing from the map. So speaking of the map, then we jump over, down, across, wherever to the Citadel.
Old Town.
I thought I would share a tweet by David Sims, who's an editor at The Atlantic, which made me crack up a little bit earlier, where his tweet was, people, I'm so excited for Game of Thrones to return. Game of Thrones, poop montage followed by Ed Sheeran cameo, which was such a great summation of this. Pun intended, talk about wasted scenes. This was so gross. I mean, I was seriously like, I think that's the grossest thing I've ever intentionally bowed my head so as not to watch on Game of Thrones.
Yeah, they really went for it, didn't they?
I put my head down like I'm not going to watch this because sidebar, I'm getting over a stomach bug. And then it's like way too long. The thing just keeps going.
Well, that's just it. Like, I'm after the third time it repeated, I'm like, okay, cool. And then it just kept going. Like, what are we meant to take away from this? Like, they didn't even have to repeat it. They could have just done it once to be like,
exactly. I got it.
Sam's having a shitty, like the first time he throws up, it's like, this is a pretty low level job that they're having him start with. Great. Moving on. Like it was weird. It was just weird. I remember Rachel, my fiance, was like in the room when that was going on, and she kind of looked over like, oh, and I'm just like, I don't know what's going on right now. It's interesting. But
that said, it combined the best of a couple movies we've seen recently. That was very Doctor Strange. In the library, sort of needing to get to the restricted section.
Oh my God, you're right. That part of it too.
Yeah. And
I was thinking, when you mentioned Doctor Strange, I was thinking just the montage of him, being a monk at wherever
no. I actually thought of the library scenes, because there is like he sort of like teleports in and like his arm appears and he grabs a book and he's doing. So also in
Doctor Strange too, their libraries have chains around their books. That must just be a thing.
Can you so here's the thing that I did not want to rewind into the poop montage to figure out whether I understood it correctly or not. So Sam dissects the body with what's his name?
I'm just gonna say Maester Broadbent, because I kept saying that was gonna be Michael Gambon, but God help, it is even better. It was Jim Broadbent. who
oh right. Yeah,
is delightful all
we
the time.
previewed
I don't know
last
what
week.
Yeah, exactly.
So they dissect this body, and Sam asks him something about those books that are restricted, right? And then does Meister Broadbent give him access to those books? And is that what Sam is later reading in his chambers with Gilly? That's the part I didn't understand.
I think what happened, the way I read that was Maester Broadbent believes that he saw White Walkers, because that was part of the conversation. It's like, nobody believes me. He's like, well, I believe you. But he's like, but that wall's been there through. It was such a disappointing thing, because he's like, you're like, oh my God, this guy is going to be the one who, believes him and helps him figure it out. And he's like, but that wall has been there and will always be there, so we're fine. And it's just like, oh, come on, man. And then I believe what happened was, we saw the shot of Sam seeing the guy with the keys. I meant to take that away, that he stole the keys and got the book.
There was way too much innuendo there. Like, I just didn't get like what's really happened. Sorry, it sounds like we're shitting on this episode, which I really didn't mean to do. That was not how I watched it. But yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't, because of course we see him reading a book and he actually getting really important information from it. And so it was very weird. It just made the whole exchange a little strange. Like, well, if that's, why do the books have to be protected? What is there something different in those books we're going to find out later? I don't know. It was just,
that was what bugged me too. I just thought when he said the words restricted section, I'm like, this isn't Harry Potter. Like, why in this world does certain knowledge have to be restricted? Like, what's the
weird
sense in that,
Yeah. So, but you did call it. Sam is there to be Meister Exposition. And as he's reading later with Gilly, he discovers that Dragonstone is a mountain of dragon glass and obsidian. And then he's like, John needs to know this. And then cut to him walking the hall, delivering this, slop to people suffering from various ailments. And then at that moment, oh shit, it's Sir Bora Mormont, the most boring man in Essos, who's now in Westeros. He wants to know if Daenerys has landed yet.
The least of the Mormonts.
The lesser Mormont.
He's the lesser Mormont. Like, his father, an awesome Mormont, dead. Lady Mormont, definitely, is better. Like, at this juncture, he's kind of like Littlefinger. What is where does he have to go in the story from here? I don't think it's anywhere. I think that room is his end. Like, I just don't see, unless he becomes a dragon. It's like, what's.
Man, it's again. There's these characters that are just like vivid and interesting, and they kill them off. And if there was another interesting person to replace him, that'd be great. But I don't like, he is such a boring, sad sack to me that I just don't care about his story. I don't care. After we leave the poop montage, I know some of this is like split into smaller scenes around that, but then we meet up with Arya riding along. She runs into a troop of Lannisters, and we get the Ed Sheeran cameo because he's singing. I don't.
Do you know what's funny? Wait.
I don't know who the fuck Ed Sheeran is, except that's who that is. Like, I don't know any of his songs. I've never heard him. I don't know who.
Do you know what's really funny? Do you know what's really funny about that? As the singing began before they showed it, I remember sitting there, and I even said this to Rachel. I'm like, that sounds like Ed Sheeran. I wonder if that is. And then the next set they showed him. I'm like, oh my God, it is Ed Sheeran. Why?
Oh, see, I had heard he had a cameo. Like, I'd read something about the cameos in this season, and did that thing where I'm like, who is Ed Sheeran? Like, who is this guy that people care enough about him having a cameo? I just knew he was a singer. He has like a signature guitar that I'm aware of. But anyway, yeah, I couldn't have known that at all. But yeah, it's so weird. He's just there to sing a song, and then he goes, "It's a new one."
Yeah, fuck. What was really confusing is that he actually sang the title of the credits song in the first Hobbit movie. And so I was in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, because he sang that song for Game of Thrones. Oh no, that was the Hobbit. Why is he in this? Like, it was really strange. One, it was like the only way his cameo would have been fun is if Arya had just murdered them all, like right there and then. So the fact that she hasn't is kind of like, oh, well.
Well, I was not bored, but I just knew what I was in for was like exposition in this scene. Like, nothing's actually going to happen. But I do like that they are sort of humanizing the soldiers that are gonna die in this huge conflict, and showing that they're really not on the Lannister side. Although this is new information, because in all the past seasons, the Lannister soldiers have been the stormtroopers on the side of the Lannisters, like these are the only human Lannisters soldiers we've ever seen. But again, like dramatically, that was a good point to make. And I couldn't help but wonder when the one soldier said that sometimes he thinks of my dad out there on his boat all alone. I was like, oh, so was your dad a blacksmith?
That would have been the perfect jump cut to Gendry, right? Like,
I know, exactly.
I was actually, in that split, that short, like 5 to 10 seconds when he said that, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to cut to Gendry rowing, and he's going to, and what's going to happen, and then he'll be there and he'll look and he'll see Daenerys' fleet like emerging from the the small,
and then he's like quickly turning around and like hurriedly rowing backwards.
Yeah. Like, oh, finally.
Oh my God.
Cuts to Gendry just on Dragonstone, because that's where he made it. And he's just been hanging out there the whole time, and he sees them approach. So I was like, when they didn't do that, I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess not. But
oh, the Game of Thrones that we can imagine. So we jump from there to it's winter again, and the Hound is riding with the Brotherhood without banners. Again, they go into this house. I did like that this tied into, the Hound's recent past. He just, what I was unclear on was, I thought he killed those people. Was that not clear?
Well, no.
Or did he leave them for dead? Was the father injured and he just stole from him?
Yeah, he beat the crap out of the dad and took the money.
Oh, yeah.
And Arya's like, they're gonna die. He's like, they were already dead.
They weren't gonna make it through the winter.
And I wondered why they had flashed on that during the last time sequence. Because I was like, because obviously the last time sequence always sort of telegraphs what's to come. So I was like, why are we flashing on this? I thought it would be something more exciting, like, oh, Arya and the Hound re-meet, and or something. But no, I'm having some issues wondering why we need to know about the Hound's moral journey. Like, he was always sort of, he was always kind of an anti-hero to some extent. Like, I don't need to, it's great that he has remorse over, basically being the cause of those people's death. Like, that's cool. But like, I don't understand why he needs to be recruited into the Brotherhood without banners, like, cause. Like, why it's so, why I have to waste so much time, like, him making a man bun joke and then, like, looking into the fire. And it's just, I just don't, I'm like, why is he that, just like, not that he has to go away, but I just feel like he's like a tier 2 character who we don't need to follow to this extent.
Well, some of the emotion behind him got sucked out when we didn't see him for so long, Just give us
Clegane and then we'll be done. Like, that's all we want.
Yeah. Which, by the way, not seeing a character for a while and having all your investment in that character disappear is the whole story of the books, at least the last 2. Let's not have any of these characters in book 4 at all and see if you give a crap after you get through this 1,200 pages, which you don't. But I need, again, like, dramatically, I'm going to use that word all the time in this episode. I did like the irony of the man afraid of fire journeying with the fire worshippers. And I do, he says that, I'm not like reading. It's not a very literary.
No, I know, but just you restating that is, you're right. Cause this is a dude. And you're right too. Cause when he's standing there, they're like, come look in the fire. And he hesitates. He's like,
yeah. He says, like, how'd I get hooked up with a band of fire worshipers? And that's what Barrack uses to prove, like, well, the Lord works in mysterious ways, basically, is what he says. But then I also appreciate that they've looked in the fire, because they've done this a couple of times with Stannis and now with the Hound, and we don't actually see the animation of, like, what's happening, which is every single time they do that, I anticipate that we're going to see this great scene that's like this crazy CGI, the fire transforms into all the White Walkers and stuff. But that actor is just really good, and I just loved hearing him tell us what he's seeing in the fire. I did like that, but I did, again, it's like, I'm kind of with you. Like, why is his moral journey a thing now?
There's an interesting point to be made there in that the old gods we constantly hear about, but they're thought to be sort of this, like almost like the Greek gods. Like, well, that was a long time ago, and that's sort of just it's just more for tradition that we do that. The Lord of Light has been sort of talked about and inserted into the story in a very profound way. Like the Lord of Light caused the smoke baby to happen. He brought people back, and yet we never see any sort of, we never see like a Sauron-like figure in the fire, like waving back at us, like, oh, it's me, Lord of Light. Like, so it's almost, there's sort of an unsettling quality to them kind of mythologizing this in a way that feels positive, but you're like, but is it? Like, is this just a big mistake? Is the Lord of Light just as damning and dangerous as the Night King? Like, I want more exploration around that. Cause like Melisandre, for example, she was the big groupie for the longest time. And it kind of got old hearing her talk about the Lord of Light every goddamn time.
Right.
Until she had that sort of moment where she, had that where Stannis, obviously wasn't who she thought he was. And it kind of threw her entire faith into question. Yeah. I would love it for her to sort of be the avatar, if you will, for how we discover the true nature of the Lord of Light. Because Beric Dondarrion's getting a little bit Melisandre now in terms of like, oh yeah, he's cool. I know him. He's a good guy. And he's just constantly, like, he's drinking the Kool-Aid and selling it to everybody else. And I'm like, I want to see somebody, even if it's Maester Exposition himself, just be like, but why is the Lord of Light? What is he? Is it some ancient demon that they just happen to normalize over time? Like, what is it? So anyway.
Well, I mean, again, like, it's great that it's like a fire, kind of a fire god and like a hot southern god and a, cold northern god. But it is weird that with all these religions, the only two that actually seem to work are Rahalar, the Lord of Light, and the old gods, like the tree people. So,
the children,
which aren't really, honestly, now that you say children, I'm like, you're right. Actually, the children are the gods.
Because the children made the White Walkers. The children made the Night King. So
well, I think of the magic of the three-eyed raven is basically like a religion that works. And when the Northerners worship the old gods and carve the face in the weirwood, that's actually the way that the three-eyed raven, I believe, would see everything in the land was through those faces. I think that's kind of made clear in the books, or not clear, but clearish, through the ravens and maybe through those faces or something. I think that's how he travels around. They have like a literal god. So I guess, Rahalar is going to be a literal god or something like that. But it makes you wonder about the seven. Like, is this just sort of a cult that formed after, these things worked, and then somebody just dreamt up the seven and it's just, BS or something. I don't know. I've told you, I like the mechanics of the religion in the show.
The one piece of information this scene did provide that I thought was compelling was the fact that the White Walkers are headed, that entire slow army we saw in the beginning is headed towards the castle nearest the sea. Oop, that was my phone. Nearest the sea and the wall. Yeah. Which is interesting it's interesting on a couple of fronts. One, it means there's not some plan to just bring down the wall yet. Right. Two, it's interesting that the Night King would have like that level of strategy, because you just kind of feel like it's this like oncoming force that's not concerned with anything but just trampling over everything, and like we'll find a way to bring down the wall. So it's like, oh, they're headed there out of a strategic need. Interesting. Like, is that going to be the first big battle? And then if so, like, how can they cross that easily? Like, why? There's a lot of mechanics there that'll be interesting to see unfold.
Yeah. Did we really learn that in this scene?
Yes. Yeah. Because remember, he's like, look in the fire, and it maybe
a castle by the sea, but hadn't John had sent some people. Yeah, he sent Torm. Right. Yeah, he sent Torm,
but John didn't. John just assumed, he's like, that castle. We saw them in Hardhome. The nearest castle to Hardhome is that one Night's Watch castle that's basically abandoned right now. So go there because that'll probably be their first place they go. Again, I'll say it too, dramatically, that the wall has got to fall down. I know that even more. I'm even more confident about that because Maester Broadbent physically says, "Oh, the wall has stood," and you know they're going to do that like last time on Game of Thrones, and they're going to show when you see the scene where Broadbent goes, "But the wall has always stood," you know that's the episode where that thing's going to go down. You know,
they could do a montage of Meisters claiming like how strong the wall is. I'm sure,
but that was the main Meister saying it. Like, he was the main dude, and it's just like the only reason. Just like when Euron said, "I've got two good hands," I'm like, "Oh, he's gonna lose a hand." Like, I just feel like that's gonna be so. So it's interesting that they're going there first. So it's like, okay, what's the play here? Are they going there to get something? Maybe that's where the Horn of Winter is. Maybe that's where we reveal that. Like, there's just so much intrigue around them doing that, and I hope we see that play out sooner than later.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
on to Dragonstone.
Yeah, the final scene of the episode. Although I did like that, like when it was named Dragonstone, I really thought, okay, we're really going to get, I knew we were going to get the landing scene, but that's really what I thought would be the focus of the show. I appreciated that really what we got was the information from Sam, from Meister Exposition, that Dragonstone is important because of the dragon glass. But that scene, man, that was actually despite all the emotional conversations, that was the most emotional scene for me, was Daenerys, like, just the look in her eye, like, in Emilia Clarke's eyes, like, I thought that was great. Just a great reaction to her seeing her family home and sort of trying to identify it, almost trying to figure out, like, is this really what, like, this is my home. I'm supposed to feel emotion, so I'm going to feel emotion, but she never really. Well,
there was some reverence. Obviously, there was like,
yeah, for sure.
There was the way they shot. I jokingly said in the notes, like, this scene brought to you by the Dragonstone Department of Tourism. Visit beautiful Dragonstone. It just had like all those like you see those like visit South Africa. Like it had that sort of the vistas, and I want to almost put that scene to like music and do like a little like end bumper on it, just for the fun of it. But it's like you can tell like she communicated so much. It's like, I finally effing made it. After all I've been through, we're finally here. So it's like, this is actually happening now. B, I was a baby here once. I don't remember it necessarily, but I was here before. And oh my God. And then C, it's like, my whole heritage starts here. When the Targaryens first took Westeros, they started here. And I am now following in their footsteps. And like when the dragons surround the castle, like I almost felt like in her mind she's thinking, I am starting a new, as worthless as Cersei's "we're starting a new dynasty" words were, Daenerys didn't have to even say it, and you knew that's like she was thinking, this is where a new Targaryen dynasty begins for 1,000 years. And it's like when Cersei's just kind of giving lip service to it, like, we can have one. Jaime's like, for who? Not for us, I guess.
Yeah. Well, same with Daenerys. I mean, she will be childless. So,
well, she will. She's got plenty of time. But it does underscore.
Tyrion's probably got dozens of little Targaryens running around. Talk about secret Targaryens. And then Jon is really going to have to marry someone who can have children so that he can start producing little Targaryens. And maybe he should marry Sansa and secure the North. And make little Targaryens.
Wouldn't it be amazing if all the Jon Sansa stuff is just like a setup for what's basically an odd couple, like married with children sort of relationship, where it's like, I guess we're gonna get married, and my old ball and chain there, my old who I used to think was my sister, but she's actually my half cousin.
So I mean, I love that there was no dialogue for the Dragonstone scene until that very last line. It was a cool last line. You kind of knew they were going to say something. Well, do you know what I thought she was gonna do? Pathetic like that.
I thought she was gonna walk to that table and like look at the camera and like knock the table twice. That whole sequence, almost beat for beat, matches the ending of House of Cards season 2, where Frank finally gets into the Oval Office, and he walks, even to the point, like, he walks down the hallway and Claire's with him for part of it, and then she goes, you go, you go the rest of the way alone. Like, she stands back, and he walks in, and he like slowly takes it in and considers his journey to the Oval Office, and he goes to the desk and he like caresses the desk, just kind of like she does on the table. And then he looks, and instead of saying like, let's begin, he just looks in the camera and basically intimates it by, knocking on the, was the first thing I thought of. I'm like, oh my God, they're doing House of Cards. This is kind of fun. She's the new Frank Underwood.
That is a great pull. I really thought she was going to sit in that throne.
Ooh.
And I thought, which I originally was like making this note as I was watching it, like, oh my gosh, are we going to see two women sit in two different thrones in one episode? But then she doesn't. She just kind of looks upon it, and then they go to the war room.
That's important, though. No, think about that
no,
for just
I mean,
second.
it will happen. It will happen later.
Oh no, but it underscores the fact that Cersei is like compare those two scenes back to back. Cersei has wanted to be queen this entire time. She finally is, and she has barely any kingdom. She has no concept of how to build a dynasty. And even if she could, there's no one for it. And she's more interested in like the pageantry. And even Euron calls her out. He's like, you're egotistical. You're boastful. Look at you. And Daenerys, who has the chance, like the first thing she can do is sit in that throne and take it in. She goes right to that war room and is like, let's get going. Like she's the difference between her mindset and Cersei's is striking. And I think that underscores it.
Well, also correct me if I'm wrong. That table that Daenerys is at in the war room, that is a map of Westeros, right? So
in addition to being the Melisandre Stannis sex table, yes, it is also a
which
map.
Seems like sidebar the most painful sex table. Like they're like knocking carved wooden figures out of the way to have sex on it. Come on, that's just too much.
Got all those like mountains and stuff like built into the table, so you can't you can't just move that out of the way.
Plus, she and Gendry are on a real comfortable bed when she seduces him. So
that's right.
Sorry, that got me out of the moment. But but we do see two queens in this episode, with two maps, which is I don't know, a very cool thing that we have waited a long, long time to see in Game of Thrones. Even if one of those queens is the most evil person in Westeros, Daenerys, and the other one is also evil. No, but it was that was a very, very cool scene. I love the ending of it. You got anything else to add? Is there anything I've missed?
No, only just that it was cool because we never had seen Dragonstone to that extent before. All we had seen before was the set where the table was, and then like outside on the beach at night, but there was never like a vista shot of like the castle or anything. Like I was actually surprised that the throne room was as big as it was. Yeah, no kidding. I kind of felt like, whenever we saw Stannis in there, he was always in the back. So you kind of just felt like, oh, this is just like an outpost that he's minding. Like I didn't realize it was this like grand thing. And I even was, Jaime, when he's talking to Cersei on their floor map, and she's like, where are they going to land? He's like, Dragonstone, because they've got all the, they've got a lot of space for the ships. He kind of described it in a way that I'm like, oh God, is it bigger than I think it is? Like, it's just, it's always been just like this little, like, almost like not a lighthouse, but just a small little thing before. So it's cool to see. Although I will say one more thing. Where the hell was everybody? Was there not like a guard or two left from the Baratheon, army, like left to guard it? I believe the Jaime thing was meant to clear that up, because he does tell Cersei like Stannis abandoned it. So I think that was kind of meant to be our cue that like, but it is strange that like it's not overrun with, the many people in this world who should be fleeing winter for shelter. But as you're pointing out, like how much of a castle wasn't so cool. Like that was one of those rare glimpses of like the real fantasy literature, like porn, that we don't really get a lot of in Game of Thrones, especially the TV series, just because that's, they got other things to set on fire and poop bowls to empty and stuff like that. But just like, those grand shots of like castles, we don't really see a lot. And that was amazing. And the fact that it was empty. And I know in the earlier seasons with Stannis, they're sort of cheating that they didn't have a lot of budget and they didn't have a lot of people, even though they always had a lot of budget. But, they'd have a crowded room, so they didn't really need to shoot it in a huge room. Yeah. They could shoot the throne room in like a smaller set, because they were going to have people all around. Well, in this, when there's no people around, they really had to have those big grand rooms. And it was just very, very cool looking. So we never saw Stannis on a throne before, did we?
Stannis.
I don't think they ever showed him sitting on
that sometime.
I'm going to call it, though. I have a feeling, I have a hunch that next week or the week after, probably next week, we're going to find that Gendry's been hanging out there for a while, and he's going to like, fall out of his closet, or they're going to like, her guards are going to like, the Unsullied are going to like bring him to her. Like, we found him. There was one holdout here. And he's like, who are you, sir? Like there'll be an exchange, and he has to explain. He basically has to explain to her why the hell he's there, which is going to be an awkward conversation, I'm sure. And then, he'll be.
And then Daenerys pulls out her own Red Priest, and he's like, "Oh, not again!"
Wait. So consider this for just a minute. If your goal as Daenerys is to, and Jaime put it to Cersei very plainly. She's like, I'm the queen of 7 kingdoms. He's like, no, you're the queen of 3 kingdoms, maybe, barely. So Daenerys has to, and Tyrion's told her this too, like Daenerys, if she wants to be the true queen of Westeros, she's going to have to unite the 7 kingdoms in the same way Robert's rebellion did, when he took over. Like he had the loyalty of all those kingdoms. Now, there will be easy ways to do that. Like if Jon needs dragon glass, she'll basically say, cool, you'll get the dragon glass if you pledge to me. He'll go, fine. Because in his mind, it's more important to fight the White Walkers, and if there's another Targaryen, great. I wonder though, if Gendry shows up on Dragonstone, Gendry is the last remaining Baratheon, the true Baratheon by actual blood. Would it not be interesting if he becomes basically her queen or her king? What's the term for like a king that's married into the family? Whatever that. Does she not marry him to say, hey, he's a Baratheon, I'm joining with him? That would get some of these other houses on board. Does that somehow make sense? I'm
that's a good theory. And she's all for political marriages. I mean, that's why she marries Hizdar Zolorak. So yeah.
And I just keep wondering, like, going back to that whole, like, what is every character's endpoint? I don't think we know Gendry's yet. I think he's got a lot of interesting endpoints still to come, and that makes the most sense of all of them to me. Anyway, something to keep an eye on. Yeah.
So real quickly, who is getting in a fight with Cersei first, or whom does Cersei attack first? Is it? I'm just wondering if we want to place bets on this. Yeah, we know Daenerys is fired up. Cersei, just because she and Jaime have that great conversation about, well, we've got this threat in the south, we've got this threat in the west, we've got this threat here. So she's got Euron, who Euron has said he's going to bring her a gift. I'm fairly certain that means Euron is headed to Dragonstone, because that's where his brother and sister are, or sorry, his niece and nephew. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think Daenerys's first fight is with Euron. I'm wondering if like Highgarden or Dorne actually attack Cersei. Like, will Cersei be in some battle where she gets weakened before a bigger clash? That's kind of where
I think you ask, who is she most pissed at out of the gate? And I think Dorne's probably top of that list. Now, that to me means, like, if Euron's fleet is passing by there to get to Dragonstone, which I think you have to, I may be horribly wrong about that, but I could easily see Euron's fleet.
Where?
Dorne, on the way to Dragonstone.
Oh, I don't believe so. Dragonstone is on the east coast, and Dorne is south of King's Landing.
Oh, okay. Well, in either case, I could see him rolling through there. Although when we talk about his gift, I took that to mean Tyrion at first, but I'm wondering if that doesn't end up being Varys, because he goes to get Tyrion, and Varys, sacrifices himself, and then somehow jumps out of Euron's ship and mermans away like that. There's so many.
Well, that's funny, because I didn't think it would be a literal gift like that. I thought it would be. I thought he meant like a battle. Like, I'm going to go win this battle, and that's your gift. Like, I'll deliver you Dragonstone or something like that.
But if you think about it, he knows the way to her heart is to satiate her revenge, or her need for revenge. And what better way than to bring the brother that had betrayed them back alive for her to do with it? I mean, I think that's where, which is going to be a shitty end for Tyrion. That's why I think that's Varys's end game, is to basically, for the good of the new dynasty, to sacrifice himself for that. Be interesting to see if that happens. I feel like Dorne's on top of that list for her. John made a good point. She doesn't have the wherewithal to go to the north just yet. I don't would seem weird if that was her plan. Maybe she goes to the Vale because Littlefinger's basically, remember last season she summoned him down a few times and he just didn't come, and now she obviously knows he's sided with Jon Snow, so he's probably on her top 2 or 3 on her shit list right now. So I would imagine that's probably it's worth considering. Anyway,
I mean I think there's an obvious like Highgarden Dornish alliance, and I really want to see it, but I don't know who we care about in Dorne.
Well, they've pledged their support to.
Sorry, not
to
in Dorne. I don't know who we care about in Highgarden.
Well, Olenna is the only one left.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
she's allied with Elias Sand, and they've both allied with Daenerys. So it's at this juncture, it is kind of. I mean, Jamie made a good point. It is kind of everybody against them, and they're on the losing side. So it's like I honestly don't. This is the end for Cersei. Like this season, she can't live past the last episode. Like this is basically her swan song as a character, and paving, leaving completely all of next year open for the White Walker battle.
All right. Well, that's a good prediction to end on. As I'm still frantically Googling Westeros maps because I don't trust myself saying what's north and south of each other. But anyway, as I do that, where can people find us, Taylor?
They can find us at our new website, findusthere.org. And you can get us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Our username is Find Us There on all those wonderful networks. You can also find us on SoundCloud. We are soundcloud.com/their network. And anywhere podcasts are downloaded, iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Google Play, Todd's personal favorite. You can find us on all those places. So download, subscribe, and tell your friends. Share this if you enjoyed it. Get other folks on and let us know what you think.
All right, dude, you're totally right. Dragonstone is south and west of Dorne.
Interesting.
Yeah, I never understand that. So anyway, this was what I want to say. This is a stage building episode. We know there is good stuff to come, and we are waiting for it. So find us every Wednesday, wherever you love podcasts. Until then, 7 blessings to you, Taylor.
And a Zora High to you, Todd. I'm glad we're doing
that. I don't know that anybody has 15 minutes. Like, I would be worried that someone had 15 minutes on Eagles hate, because to me, the opposite of love is indifference. And if you ask me about the Eagles, I would just shrug.
I like that quote. The opposite of love is indifferent. You're right. You're right. Because somebody who hates you still has a passion for you. It's just the
right.
It's just an unproductive.
If you were like, how do you feel about the Eagles? I'd be like, feel.
I'm not even going to dignify that answer with that question with an answer.
Eagles?